Welcome back to the Larson Show. It's a pleasure to be with you on a Wednesday evening. Glad to get your phone calls and emails. A couple little updates on some stories we've been following tonight. Number one, in Florence, South Carolina, we know that there was a shooting. It involved law enforcement officers. There were 5 officers who were shot, 3 deputy sheriffs and 2 police officers. 1 law enforcement officer has been confirmed killed tonight. The other 4 were wounded or injured in some way, and we're checking to make sure what their condition is as we get new updates on that. Second, a member of Sheila Jackson Lee's staff, she's a member of Congress, member of the Senate, that she apparently had a staff member arrested because that staff member apparently doxed some other members of the Republican Congress. And that information, some of it coming off government computers, was apparently illegally provided to the to the internet and to other places, and as a result, a member of her staff has been placed in custody. We'll get you details on that as they become available. As you know, I certainly have a dog in the fight here because I carry a concealed pistol every single day, have for 25 years, and I've never had to pull it out. But that's part of the beauty of concealed carry. States where you can have a concealed carry permit. Every state in America actually allows them, but some of the states are incredibly difficult when it comes to getting one. New York and California and Washington, D.C. are 3 locations where it's very difficult, but every state in America offers concealed carry, and the District of Columbia. So the question is, when we see violent crime dropping across America and doing so over most of the last 30 years, is that at least in part a result of the rise in concealed carry permits? Tim Schmidt joins me now, who's founder and president of the U.S. Concealed Carry Association. Tim, it's good to have you back.
Hey, good evening, Lars. As usual, it's great to be on your show. I appreciate it.
Always glad to have you here. So I've admitted my dog in the fight. I'm very pro concealed carry, and I don't want anybody to be have any misprehensions about that. But is there a case to be made statistically that the reason that violent crime in America is dropping is that we've seen a dramatic rise, even during President Trump's tenure and certainly during President Obama's tenure, in the number of Americans who own firearms and have concealed carry permits?
Lars, I think there's a very good case for that. And this latest FBI report, showing violent crime dropping, combined with the fact that concealed carry permits, they've gone from 11 to 18 million, a huge increase. And your typical, anti-gunner is going to tell you that, oh, my goodness, with all these new guns on the street, as they like to say, crime's going to skyrocket. But just the opposite is happening. And that's what my organization is all about. We're all about trying to get more well-educated, well-trained people with handguns who ultimately do the good stuff. And that's what it's all about. So, yes, there's a direct correlation. The more good guys with guns, the less bad guys want to commit crime.
Yeah, in fact, I'm trying to remember. You probably remember these stats better than I do. But today there are, about 350 million, or is it a higher number than that, of firearms in private possession in the United States? Is it 400 million yet?
Yep. So, Lars, right now there's close to 400 million privately owned guns in the United States. And that's one thing that I keep trying to tell people. You can pass as many anti-gun laws as you want, and, guns aren't going away. So the solution isn't trying to stick your head in the sand and think that, by passing these laws, all of a sudden the guns are going to vanish, but rather let's get more responsibly armed citizens on the street, because the only thing that criminals listen to, the only language they understand, is a good guy with a gun.
That's right. And I was going to say that if you go back, I think it's to maybe 1980, was the number of guns in private possession closer to 200 million in about 1980. So we come forward not quite 40 years, and we have doubled the number of guns in private possession in America, which by the anti-gunners' logic, if you double the number of guns, you're going to see twice as much violent crime, or maybe more so. And instead, we've seen a drop over the last 30 or 40 years in violent crime in this country. So the evidence of the numbers is that more guns in the hands of law-abiding citizens means dramatically less crime.
You're exactly right, Lars. And the thing to remember is that almost any statistic that you look at, for example, New York Times, their own report, they talked about in 2017, there were 11,000 people murdered by criminals with guns. In that same year, the FBI came out, and now granted, these are very conservative FBI numbers, they stated that 112,000 non-police individuals defended their lives with guns. Now, if you look at research by Dr. Gary Kleck, there's significantly even more, but even those ultra-conservative numbers, 10 times more good things happen with guns than bad things.
Yeah, and I guess this suggests that if we could get even more guns, if we made government policies more friendly toward people having concealed carry. I mean, Tim, you know, I make a nice living. You make a nice living. If I bought a new Walther pistol last week, I have a number of pistols. But what I wonder about is the ability of the average person out there who lives in a place like California where they make it very expensive to be able to get a permit. Even Nevada makes it a little bit ridiculous because you have to take classes and you have to do this and you have to do that. And by the time you're all done, an average person might have to drop $1,000 all totaled to be able to have the permit, have the gun, practice, and be properly equipped to do that. Well, for an awful lot of wage earners, $1,000 of discretionary income is a big chunk of the family's budget over even a couple of years, even though it's great security, but if you can afford it.
Lars, I couldn't agree more. I mean, the fact that if you have to spend that much money to exercise a natural-born right, i.e. the permits and all that stuff, that's just wrong, especially in the United States of America where, I mean, our country is based on the concept of personal freedoms. And so another point, the ironic thing is that the cities and the states that have the highest levels of crime are the areas where it's the toughest for the law-abiding citizens to get the guns. And that's, I mean, to me, that's a travesty.
Well, and I know that because I have a nice income, I actually kind of live in a Heinz 57 neighborhood. There are nice houses. There are not so nice houses. There are houses in my neighborhood nicer than my house, and there are houses that are not as nice. And I think these are people who work hard for, to make their living, and they should have the same kind of protection I do, even though if you live in a nice neighborhood, you're a lot less likely to fall victim to crime. The ugly truth is that most criminals are poor, and most criminals prey on the poor people around them in poor neighborhoods. And you know that the stats bear that out. So if you say, if we could make it easier and say that the government says we'll waive the fee for getting a concealed carry permit if you have an income below such and such, not give them any money, but just say, if you want to get the permit, man, you're below a certain income. We give out free cheese, we give out food stamps, we give out all these other things. How about waiving the fee for concealed carry permits for people below the average in income, and make it easier for them to do it and put the fear of God in all the criminals out there?
Yeah, well, you're exactly right, because that is the only thing that puts the fear of God in criminals, and that is an affirmative, violent response. That's what they're afraid of. And the good news, I mean, that's an interesting spin you put on it, Lars, but the good news is that there's many states that are actually going in that direction, but in even a more broader way in the sense of constitutional carry. So right now we have 12 states that have pretty much said, all right, we trust our citizens to carry guns. You don't have to ask for a permit. You don't have to ask us if we can defend ourselves. And I personally think that's fantastic.
I love it. It's constitutional carry. Now, imagine what would happen in Chicago if they tried that experiment, but I know that Rahm Emanuel and his crowd would not go for it. Tim, where can people find the U.S. Concealed Carry Association on the web?
The best way to get more information about how to be a responsibly armed American is just go to uscca.com, and we will take care of you.
Very good. Tim, it's always a pleasure to have you on. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Lars.
You bet.